Hello, Jan Montarsi here, and today I had a bit of play working on a veneer that I've been wanting to try for quite a while. I also wanted to try some of my new items that I got from SWEETY BIJOUX, and I'll put her link in the comments or description. I hope you enjoy this class. Here are the results from my trial and errors during this class. I really enjoyed experimenting with this. Enjoy the class. Recently I got these beautiful tools from SWEETY BIJOUX. This is a beautiful texture stamp titled The Waves Vertical. Quite large and thin, but the texture is quite nice, deeper than it looks. This is a stencil, plastic stencil, but it's also thick, so it can be used as a texture plate. This is a heat-proof bracelet blank. I think I'm going to work with that today. This is a super sharp cutter. And the cutters all pop off separately. And you can use them in different combinations for donut shapes or circles. They're super sharp. But what you also can do, you have this crossbar to keep them centered. But then you have this single bar so that if you want to make something like a pendant that you put a rope through, you can position them anywhere on the bar that you want. It can be a donut, or it can be higher to be a pendant. Awesome tool, awesome invention. Some beautiful earring cutters that are super sharp. Hope you can see those edges good. This is the box that the cutter set came in. But today, I'm working on the bracelet. I think I'm going to give it just a little bit of a sand. They're 3D printed. Just a little bit of rough edge here, but they're good, they're strong, they're flexible. I don't want to do it so much. And you can bake them with polymer clay. I bake in multiple stages. I'm hoping that it holds up to multiple bakes. I'm sure it will. Everything she makes is of high quality. And that's SWEETY BIJOUX. So I'm just using some 320 sandpaper here. And just a little bit, and that's fine. Just a little bit of roughness there. And now there's not. And it's going to be covered anyway, but it just makes it easier when you go to slice the edge of your veneer sheet against the edge of the form, whatever kind of form. So I just want to make sure my blade will glide nice and smoothly when I go to trim the clay. Okay, I'll be back. We're going to make a clay veneer to put on this. So, this is the bracelet blank. I've sanded it on the edges to make it smooth. Not worried about the top or bottom. There's just where it was rough. And this is another tool I didn't show you. This is like a wavy blade, but it's like more Greek key design. And it too is super sharp. But I'm going to use my Lucy wavy blade today because of the way I'm going to construct my veneer. I'm going to stretch it out, and I think the waves will stretch better than the sharp edges on this one. Comes in a little case. They're quite nice. Tells you what the end is, what the pattern is on the end of the lid. Now the colors I'm using is white, black, and red. Primo clay, and this is kind of sticky and soft. This is actually pomegranate red. Cad red is too yellow. When I do black, white, and red, I use pomegranate. And this is how I store my clay. I open 2 packs of each color, and I condition them, and I sheet them on the thickest setting on my pasta machine. And then I store them between deli plastic. And I only use about 13 or 14 primary colors, several blues, several reds, 2 yellows, anyway, and that's the only colors I buy. So all my clay that I'm working with fits in this about 1.5 inch high box. And I just have all my colors ready to go when I'm ready to work. And then when I run out of a color, I restock it. And it's always there. So I'm going to condition this clay a little bit because it's been here a while, and I want to make sure they're all the same consistency. And I will probably have to leach it between paper. Okay, so I've rolled this clay out on a thinner setting, like a 2 or a 3, and I have it on copy paper. I'm going to put another piece of copy paper on top because they're both kind of sticky, and I don't like working with sticky clay, especially like when you're doing cut and replace work or making veneers that you have to handle. It's great to stretch around, you know, the edges of something, but it also can get out of control. So this is between 2 pieces of paper. I'm going to put it on my work chair and sit on it for about 15 minutes. And I'll be back. And I'm doing the white also. Okay, I've been sitting on this for about 10 or 15 minutes, and you can see the oil is starting to come out into the paper. Now, I'm going to let this go. I am going to steal a little piece of this black to get the inside of my bracelet covered. And that should be enough. And I'm going to continue sitting on this. There's my white. That's my white leaching out. You see the oil coming out. So I'm going to continue to sit on that while I work on this set. Okay, now, this is the bracelet blank. And I put a piece of painter's tape from end to end because I just want to use that as a measuring tool. It's a lot easier than trying to measure a round surface. So now I know how long my veneer has to be for the outside. A little shorter for the inside. I need to recondition this clay a little bit because when you leach clay, the outside is dry and the inside is like softer and more plasticized on it. So you have to blend it to get it consistent again, and that's what makes your clay overall firm or more firm. And you can see how it kind of gets a matter finish the more dry it is. So let me condition this real quick. Now this is only partially conditioned, and you can see the wavy lines that look kind of whitish. That's the difference in the consistencies of the clay. Once it's all fully mixed, you won't see anything like that. It'll just be all one color. And this is still kind of sticky, but I'm going to go with it. Okay, so here's my bracelet blank. This is a clay on about a setting number 3 condition. And I have some liquid clay here. This is Sculpey brand. And I have a sponge sheet, which you can use. Dust on there. I like to use some patty paper. And I'm going to put it just almost up to the edge. And just to that edge. And this is going to be my first attachment point. So, I'm going to flip this over. Get this on there. This is the clay's still sticky. I'm trying to keep it from sticking to itself. So I'm just going to bring this out a little bit more, fold it over the edge, and jelly roll it lightly, not tight, just to get it inside the bracelet blank. All right, let me put some liquid clay on here. Probably way too much. Rub it out. Now, if you use bacon bond for something like this, that's okay too. Excuse me. But the thing about bacon bond, you want to use that where it doesn't have the opportunity to gush out, because it can get a yellow cast to it and it can get cloudy looking. The liquid clays won't do that, but they both will work equally as well. Just be neat. Now, I'm only covering the inside, not the edge. I'm going to have my veneer from the top come over to the edge to meet it. So I have plenty of liquid clay in there. It's tacky. I'm going to set my roll inside of there where this edge is to start it. And I'm going to unroll it. And it may stretch a little, which is fine. I got to get the paper out of here. Okay, the paper's out. Sometimes when you just try to wiggle this in there, you get stuck to everything. Alright, so that's out over there. Now I'm going to reposition that. I'm trying not to stretch it. You don't want it shrinking back, so just take your time and get coverage. And then I like this really fine sponge. This is from the Lucy Tools sponge set. It keeps your fingerprints off, puts minimal, almost a dry texture on it. A little shy there of the end. I'm going to lift that up and stretch it just a little bit. Get it well adhered. I just heard my Pennsylvania accent come out. I won't tell you which word it was. Alright, I'm going to take a sharp blade. That one's no longer a sharp blade. Let me get a sharp blade. Okay, I have a clean, sharp blade. I'm going in kind of on an angle. And this first pass is just to get the excess off. Both sides first. Press that good with the sponge. And bring it up over the edge just a little. You don't want to break it off. You can always sand that. I do everything in steps. So I will get this covered, and then this piece will be baked for the first baking. Now, you can bake on plastic Easter eggs, like if you're covering eggs. But if they're not covered, they will distort and melt. So I've never worked with this material before. I've only watched some snippets of videos. So I'm going with my gut here. See, there's a gap. That happens when you stretch it. You want to make sure you have no gaps, and try not to stretch when you're pressing. You just want to adhere it. Okay. Boy, these are really nice and easy to work with, these blanks. Okay, I think that's good. That was quick and easy. Now, I was getting back to my point with the plastic eggs. I don't know what's going to happen to this if it's not totally covered in clay the first time it goes in. So I am going to bake this, and I'm going to put a layer of foil around it. I'm going to just wrap it in foil and make sure my oven is preheated. And I'll probably bake this for 15 minutes at 265, which is the recommended temperature. Then after I bake it, I'm going to re-sand these edges and refine them. I want them smooth. I'm actually going to pull some of that clay over. I like having a little bit thicker edge there. And I just want to make sure it's attached. I would rather sand a little bit away. Sanding is not hard. You just have to do it without whining. Anyway, so this is going in the oven. My clay colors are still leaching. I will get those reconditioned. Okay, this is nicely covered. I'm checking for any air bubbles on the inside. Happen to see one there. I don't want to have to sand the inside of this. The sponge texture is just enough. I really love it. It's just enough to make it smooth but slightly matte. And I'm going to go get a piece of foil and show you how I'm going to wrap this, because I don't expect it to do anything but bake, but just in case I want the insurance. Okay, here's a piece of foil. And just like the same reason you never bake on a metal pan without some kind of insulation, I never bake on a metal pan, always tiles. I'm going to insulate this foil with a little piece of paper towel. No, this will not burn at polymer clay temperatures. I'm going to wrap this end past here and wrap it around. And then just put a piece of painter's tape or Scotch tape just to hold the foil. That will keep it from expanding. I don't know how this plastic works. So I'm just going to close those a little bit, and this is now going in the oven. Like that. On a tile, preheated, 15 minutes. Here's my white clay. It looks nice and matte on the inside. On the outside, I'm sorry. I'm going to condition this. You can see how greasy my paper is, but I could leach this more. I'm just too impatient. Whatever is left here will go back into my other package of white already conditioned clay and get blended with that so that it firms that up a little bit. So I will condition my 3 leached clay colors and I will be back. Okay, so my clay has been leached. It's a lot less sticky. I actually had to do the black a second time. And there's my white. I'm keeping my white on paper, trying to keep it clean. But there's my 3 colors, black, pomegranate, and white. My form is out of the oven. It's still cooling off. I'm going to let it fully cool before I take the foil off. So let's start making our veneer. Now I keep these papers to work on. And what we're going to be doing, oh, now where did I put it? I'm just going to be using this blade. And we need to make a veneer that's as long. This is our tape we measured our bracelet blank with. But we're going to be stretching our veneer a little bit, so it doesn't have to be that long. I'm actually going to start half that size. And we're going to be assembling wavy cuts from each clay color together. I personally want less red, probably more black, and middle amount of white. So, and I like working on paper too, especially when you're trying to assemble things that are cut and replaced. So, I'm going to take each color and I'm going to cut ribbons on the camera, right at the edge. Different widths of ribbons. I don't care if they're lined up, like, you know, the blade in the same spot. Okay, and this is probably way more than I'm going to need. It's already way too wide, so I'm going to stop there for right now. And then I'm going to cut some black ones. These I'll make a little wider. I'll probably make a couple extras of these because I do want more black, and they're just random. Make one more. What's that? Something on my blade. Huh. Well, anyway. Okay, so there's some of those. And I'll leave this here. The white I'm going to keep on its own piece of paper. Need to wipe my blade off. Spraying it with a little alcohol. And I'm wiping it with paper towel. I really don't want to get red or black. Trying to keep my white clay as clean as I can. That's the nicer side. There's a little piece of schmutz there. So, and I'm going to do this about like the black. Some wider ones. Maybe not quite as wide. Some medium. And a thin one or two. I don't know what that tape is. I guess that's tape from it being in the package. I didn't see. They're taped into the package, so when you get them, they're in this little cardboard slider. And you take the tape off the end, and then you have this to put it in to keep it sharp. All right, let me just cut a couple thin ones here, and we'll be done. And I've washed my hands about 50 times today. They're really dry, but they're really clean. All right. So, we have all these. Now, we're going to assemble them. Cut one more black one. And I really can cut these in half because they're pretty big. Now, what I want to do is we're going to make these interlock. Now, let's just start, and I'll show you. And these are all the same facing up way. You can turn them over. Like I know, well, let's just put them together. This is a pretty tight fit. Okay, and then let's add a white one. Now sometimes they don't fit that tight, flip it over. Because when you cut with the blade into the clay, your clay drags down and rounds the top edge. But the bottom edge is nice and flat and crisp. So if you flip every other one over, you get a better seam. Try not to crush your edges as you're assembling these. Oh, let's go with a skinny black. And then a thin white. You know what? I'm going to go with a thicker white because I have other plans. That's too thick. I want one that's a little less than that. Put a thin red. And I think I'll put another white on this side. This is way more than I'm going to need. Let me go. I want to do a thicker red here. I'm going to use this end piece. Oh, that has a funky thing on it. Okay, so now we have this put together. And we're going to burnish it. Grab a piece of parchment or patty paper. And what we want to do is, I'm using my finger right now. I'm going to get my burnishing tool, but my main objective at this point is to get them stuck together. Grab another patty paper for the other side. Now this is way more than I'm going to need, so I'm going to cut this in half when we're done burnishing. And this is on the thickest setting of my pasta machine. If you look, sometimes here, let me go smooth down again. You can see a little white in between, like there. That means it's not fat, so it's not burnished altogether. So pull your paper off. And on this, because I'm using white, I'm gonna flip it over. Actually, I'm gonna get a new one because I don't want to transfer the red onto the white. I'll stay on this half. We're going to put this through the pasta machine, and you just don't want it falling apart. And I'm not super worried about it being, keeping the wavy lines perfect. I just don't want it to fall apart. Okay, so this was on the thickest setting. Need to work a little more on the ends. So they don't fall apart. I'm actually going to cut them straight. There's a good blade under here somewhere. There it is. I'm going to wipe it off. I'm going to trim this straight. Okay. So now we have this. Try to take it apart, but I'm not real keen on putting this back into my mixes. So, but if I mix these three together, I'm going to get a purple color, a maroon purpley mud. Okay. So now we have this. It's way too big, but let's see here. Do I want to cut that in half? Okay, this is about a third. No, I'm going to leave it. All right, so I'm going to put this through my pasta machine this way, going on the rollers this way to stretch it out one setting. All right. I'm going to first go through on 0, where I was. And then I moved it down one setting to number 1. And that didn't do all that much, so I'm going to go down to 2. And it had gone through on this side before. I'm going to put it on the other side. The other end. It went through this way the first time. I'm going to just turn it over, just so that it's more evenly spread. Okay, so now you can see our wavy lines are bigger. Now this can grow, so you have to be careful. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my wavy blade. I'm going to start on the white first, and I'm going to cut those apart. Okay. I'll cut this one apart. And I'm going to stay away from the end because that'll be weird because it was on the end. And you can't ever count how they expand. All right, so I have this cut apart. Now, these sheets that I have are already too thick. I need to roll these on the same. So I'm going to roll this white one on the same and recut new edges so that it's the same thickness. And I can put this one here. So I need to get a piece of red. Each time we'll be rolling this down through to get the same thickness. All right, let's do a skinny red. I'll put that in here. I think I'm going to add black in there. So next time I won't pre-cut all those where my head was at, but that's what I did. All right. I think I need a black in here. Get another one. These are all being rolled through on a number 2. I missed a spot. There we go. Okay, I think that's big enough for now. Get it all together, make sure they're tight. And once again, I have the clean side of my paper down. I'm burnishing the new ones. Now right there is a little fleck of red on the edge of my white. And I'm just going to use this to scoop it out of there, because burnishing it will push it right down in there. You can feel the difference in the new pieces we put in. They're just probably slightly thicker, and I think that's a function of when you put a whole sheet of clay through your machine, you get a different thickness than if you just put a little piece through. Okay, now I shouldn't have done this on copy paper because when you burnish on copy paper, it loves to stick to the paper. So I'm going to get this trimmed first to a more usable size. And then scrape it off my paper. You don't have these are called patty papers. Handy wax patty papers. If you have restaurant supply stores near you, they should have them there. These cost me $7 a box in the store. If you order them online, you're looking at a lot more money, but they do have them. Or go to Dollar Tree and buy the cheapest wax parchment paper, not wax paper. Buy the cheapest parchment paper they have and roll it all out and cut it into squares. I'm trying to get this stuck to this one. I don't want it to fall apart. There we go. You see, they can fall apart, so you have to burnish them well. Now, if I was a smart person, I would have put some little bit of, a teeny tiny amount of black embossing paper in my white, or powder, in my white clay to make it speckly. But if you ever do that, you need to use that clay all at once. Because if you use it and you take the leftovers and you mix them up, it will get the speckles will start to dissolve, not fast, but the next time you go to mix it up, say in a couple days or a week, that ink on the outside of the embossing powder dissolves in the clay and you'll get like a purple color of clay with smaller speckles. So only mix what you think you're going to use. Okay. So now we have one size of wavy line there and a tighter line there. And now I'm going to put it down through the pos machine on the next setting. I am going to try to dig out any little flecks I see. You know what? This wavy blade's much sharper and easier to get that dip right in there. Okay. Here it's coming apart a little bit right there. Make sure you go along the edges too. It's easy to avoid those, but you don't want it falling apart in the pasta machine. There's another one. I am on the paper there. Peel away. Don't pull it off. I can see here I'm not connected. And here I'm not connected. Let's check again. Not connected here. So when you're moving this around, just to review this, okay, it's stuck to that paper. I'm burnishing it some more, which means it's going to be stuck to both papers. I don't see any little white spaces. There's a little bit there. I'm going to burnish that. Where the seams meet, you'll see like white air where they meet. I'm going to flip it over, burnish it some more. Don't pull the paper up, peel it back. All right, now I'm going to put this through. This is a setting 2. all this extra stuff here. And I'm gonna put this through on a setting 3. Okay, now it's stretched pretty good. Every pasta machine's different. Like there was very little difference on mine from 0 to 1, but then 2 made it move, and 3 stretched it almost double from 2. So that's good. So now I'm gonna do this again. And I'm gonna be smart this time and just put my good white cut-ups and colored cut-ups away. I'm sorry, I'm cleaning up this mess and getting rid of all these partial pieces because they're too thick. All right, so I'm gonna cut a piece of each color of clay, and now I'm gonna roll it through my number 3 setting that I'm on. And then we're gonna cut this. It's just as long as my blade. I don't wanna ever have to try to cut 2 things. So when this one is done, we'll be done with inserting. So I have to wipe down my pasta machine so I don't stain my white. And I will be right back when I do that, and these will be rolled. These 3 new layers will be rolled through the number 3, which is how thick this is right now. Okay, I've cleaned my pasta machine. I wiped it underneath and on the rollers and make sure it's dry. This is a piece of translucent clay I keep by my machine. It's usually a little bigger than this. But after I clean it, I always run through this multiple times, the whole length and back and forth on the machine, to catch any little crumbs that a quick cleaning get rid of. So let me roll these all on 3. Let's cut not quite as long. I'm gonna fold that in half and roll it the other way because I want it about that length. So these are gonna go long ways. All right, now I gotta decide where to cut this. And I don't want to cross lines. You could cross, you know, and that would make another neat pattern. For this, I'm just keeping straight. But if you wanted to tip your blade and cross into 2 colors, let's do it that way. Okay, there's a crossover. And that's red and white, so I'm definitely gonna put black in there. Now this black, I need to trim shorter. Sorry, I went off the camera. Okay, so start a new edge. That's kind of neat. Here's a black. I'm gonna wipe the crumbs off my blade. Okay, here's where black and white overlap quite a bit, so I'm going to put a red one in there, cutting into the white and the black only. So now I need a piece of red. This is way too long. Cut a new edge. This one I'm going to keep thin. And we're going to stick it in there. And marry it to that one. That's all right. I've lost some here. There's a hole there, but I'm just going to let it go. It's enough. Okay, so let's see. Here, I can put another red one in there, crossing the black into the white. Keeping it thin because I really want less red than anything else. Ugh. I'm having mobility issues. Let me try this again. This is usually how I work. I have it all planned out in my head, and as I go, I switch things up a little bit. All right, let's see. We're going to do that again one more time. I want to keep the black, so I'm going to go between this red and that white. And add a little bit wider black in there, because I really want more black than anything. And this will give me black on both ends, which is good. All right, I'm going to go with a little bit wider black. And if I wanted to, I could cut these pieces I'm inserting. I could cut them on an angle, but I'm not. Okay, so we got everything put back together. I want to keep that little bit of white, so I'm dropping that lower here. All right, I think that's good. Fresh patty papers. Put one on it, try to get it stuck there. Try to peel it off of the copy paper. Flip it over. Make sure everything's nice and tight. Whoops, that's a small one. And then we're going to burnish again. And I want to make sure all that air is out from between the angled cuts that I put in there. I'm rubbing on the black, and then I'm rubbing on both sides on the red to push it all together. Ooh, I hate that dry paper sound. Alrighty, flip it over. Do the other side. Concentrating on the angled pieces because that's where the cuts were. And the others were already stuck together good, so. But you see, now I have all these different sizes of waves. And this is probably enough for 2 bracelets. Let's see how long we are now. Okay, we're like 2/3 of the way there. Now we're going to stretch it once long ways. But so I want to do that now. I think I need another, looking at this, I really like it. I think I need another angle in here. So I'm going to put in one more angle of red there. Got to release it from my paper so that it doesn't stick when I try to cut it and pull it all apart. So this white and black area here, it's kind of obvious. This one here is kind of obvious too, but it's thinner and it's going to be more on the side. So just to be on the safe side, that's thicker white. So I'm going to cut from the black, middle of the black to the middle of that thicker white. And insert a thin red. There's a piece of red. Flip that one over. Trying to move it down one bump. There we go. Okay. This is better to do on copy paper because the patty paper has a little bit of tack to it. But I'm working with it. There we go. Concentrate on that spot real quick. Okay, now I'm going to get clean papers. I'm just doing this with the clean papers a lot because, you know, I started thick, which would have given me a lot to sand away, but as I keep thinning this out, it's getting thinner and thinner, and I have less to sand away. So by changing the papers, I'm not getting as much staining from the red and black onto the white. But like I said, had I put a tiny bit, and when I say tiny bit, you literally touch your finger to the jar, a circle about that big, just scattered through what we have here, about a third to a half a block of white. There's plenty. Don't overload it. All right. Now, I'm liking that. I think what I'm going to do is run it through. And then I might add another string here and another string here. And then we're going to call it done. So I'm on a 3 now. I'm going to go to a 4. I need to cut a straight edge. It's getting unruly. Cut a straight edge. Cut a little bit off of that side. Okay. That was on a number 4. Okay, now, so I'm going to add a white in here. And this is kind of odd right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut into the red and into the black. And I don't want to cut that away. I'm going to leave it. Now I need to roll my white thinner again to match the thickness. And add a piece of white into there. Cut a new edge. I'll flip that over. Like I said, I should be working on copy paper. It is much easier to slide the clay around. Even that little bit of plasticizer in the paper there doesn't allow it to slip as good. But I will deal with it. You want to make sure they perfectly line up, because if they overlap a little bit, it will smash out oddly. Okay, I'm just going to get out a little bit, and then I'm going to come down to this end and do right here with another white, probably a thin white. So I'm going to go from that black, and I'm actually going to cross to the other black, upside down. Get another strip of white here. Trying to stay in the camera for you. If you didn't see that, I'm going to move it in a second. Get rid of this one. All right. All right. So this is where I cut. I cut from that black actually into the other white, but I wanted to cross that. I'm going to lay this in there. I think that's too thin. Cut another one. I also had red on it. This has red on it there, so I'm going to turn that over. This is where schmutz starts contaminating your work. All right, that's better. You tip your blade, it usually falls right off. All right, gonna get this one into place. There's a, no. I thought that was schmutz there, but it's actually white from there, so it's fine. There we go. All right, that's clean. Just a gentle rub right there. Look at this mess. I know you all make the same mess. All right, so I'll get a hold of this piece of paper. I'm gonna get 2 new clean papers because I'm a chicken with this white. And I could look right now. There's a very thin white dot there, not a problem. I'm more worried about what's on the white. I'm gonna arch this just a little bit and get one of those lower things in there. That really works well with these. Okay, the rest of my white I think looks okay. There's a little one there. That's good. Okay. This is where it's nice to have longer strips. If you buy the cheapest, biggest roll at Dollar Tree, you can cut yourself longer strips for something like bracelets. But if you burnish this into paper, you're pretty much screwed because it actually pushes into the fibers of the paper and you never get it off. So now we have all these different sizes of wiggly lines. I really like that. Okay, get this off the paper. Now I'm going to get my real burnisher. There's all kinds of burnishing tools. It's a flat, perfectly flat surface. Some people use doorknobs. I do not use the silver soaps. They're curved, so when you're burnishing with them, they create divots. It would be like if you took your fingers and just stayed in the same spot, you'll get trenches where you're burnishing. This one in particular is sold by NORA PERO. I think she's in Arizona, out that way. Find her on Facebook. I'll put a link to the burnisher in the comments. I will have a link to the Lucy blade. I will have a link to SWEETY BIJOUX and the Lucy sponge. I think that's the only thing unique that I used. All right, there's that side. Now, our last stretch is going to be long ways, okay? came apart right there. Put that back together. And sometimes when you cut the ends, it helps. Also, you can just use the back side of your blade and dent on the edges, and that will help also. But I'm cutting this one off because it's uneven anyway. All right, so now we're going to put it through the pasta machine this way, and then we're stretching them wider. Now, if you're not sure how much it's going to stretch, take a piece. This is a piece that we did on the last one. I'm going to turn my pasta machine to the next setting, which on mine is number 5. Turn the handle a couple times. Make sure it's set right. I just want to see how much this moves. So that almost doubled that. So if I do that with this one, and it doubles it, I'm going to have way more than I need, and the pattern is going to be way stretched out. So at this point, if you wanted, you could use your roller and just roll it. Let me get a roller. And I will be right back. I need to clean some of this mess up and have room to work. Now I do have another pasta machine. I could also check the setting on that. So let me take this white to that one. And I'm going to clean up this mess. And I may use the other one. Okay, one other thing we can do is, and I'm going to do this one. I did check my other pasta machine. There is a setting that if I put this in, it would just stretch it a little bit. But I don't want to clean that one because it's really dirty. So what I'm going to do is look at and find the cleanest side here, which is this side. So this is dirty side up. And I'm going to put a thin sheet of black. And then I'm going to start at my thickest setting and start rolling it one by one until it moves to this length. Because the black's, oh, I never looked at this. The black's the underside of this. So let me do that first, and then we will look at what came out of the oven. Okay, so here's a piece of black. It's on a number 4, and this was a number 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of patty paper, and I'm going to put it just up to the edge, and I'm going to start and I'm slowly letting this down as I'm burnishing it side to side, making sure I get 0 air. All right. I'm going to trim off the excess. I had a little bit come apart there. I'll fix that with burnishing in a second. Same there. Trim the ends. I think that's the most scrap clay I've made in a very long time. I don't usually end up with very little. Okay, there's a couple spots I got to burnish here. Kind of came apart there and there, but that's fine. I just all right. So now we're going to put this through the pasta machine with this side and the rollers. I wish I had black at the other end in case I end up just that long, but I don't think it's going to matter. That would give me black at each end of the thing. So let's look at this bracelet real quick. I'm going to make sure it all came out. Yep, looks good. The whole outside's there. The whole inside's nice. A little piece of paper towel there or something. So I'm going to sand that edge again. But for now, I'm going to stretch this. So we'll have to start back on a thicker setting. And I am going to wipe the underneath side of my pasta machine because that's what's under there now. And I don't want it getting onto my white clay if I can help it. All right, it's clean now. I'm going to put my translucent scrap through to make sure. And I usually go down to a middle setting for that because sometimes the change in the settings can push more dirt out than the thicker settings. All right, that looks pretty clean. See how clean my clay came out? All right, so I'm going to start on 0, and I'm going to put this through this way, which is going to stretch all these wiggles slightly wider if it fits. Yeah, see, 0 did nothing. So now I'm going to go to 1. One did very little. Now I'm going to go to 2. Two did a little bit, but I'm not there yet. Now, I'm concerned with 3. I am concerned with 3. So, let me take a piece of clay, scrap clay. Okay, so you see how big that is. I'm going to put it through in this end. We're going to see. Actually, let me cut it as wide as the tape. And I'm going to put it through, and we're going to see how much it expands. So that takes me to a. Oh, that was a 2. I'm going to a 3. So it didn't expand that much. So I'm safe in doing this one. So this will be the last pass of this veneer. And it feels really big. Oh, I just made a pass. Okay, so now this is the veneer. Good. I wanted it a little bolder. I'm not happy with the schmutz there. It'll probably sand away. But that's our veneer. So now we need a piece. First of all, this wide. And I'm going to avoid right here where the schmutz got on it. So I don't need that much. Let me get my long blade. It's my workhorse blade. It's really stiff. It's really long. It's longer than my piece of tape, so that's good. Get these at Home Depot or at Lowe's. They're called Personna, P-E-R-S-O-N-N-A. They're in the tile section. They're floor scraper 8-inch blades. They come 5 in a tube on a hanging card. Somewhere where they have all the tile blades, floor scraper blades. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is the side to side. I think that's a good place to have the edge start. I'm going to slightly curve it. And here, that will get me to here on this one. And then we only need it as wide as this. Let me cut a clean edge on this side. And not much wider. There is going to be some taken up by the curve. So you want it a little wider. I'll leave a little on that side. And a little on this side. You don't want to have to stretch it because it'll shrink back. All right, there we go. So that's our blank piece. Now I can use this to make earrings, either direction. Another skinnier bracelet. And on that note, I created a tool that's going to be coming out soon. It lets you make bracelet blanks. Super simple. Much easier than other methods you've seen. We'll get more to that later. All right, I want to put this This is how I store my extra veneers. I get a plastic deli sheet, and I'll put an Amazon link for this in the thing too. They're $12 a box for 1,000 sheets. Well worth it. Usually what I do is, if I have enough, I will cover half a sheet and then close it. And then I have a box, just like I have my box for all my colors of clay I use. I have a box just like this. So when I go to work, this is all I have to grab. I don't have to go hunting. All my colors are right here. Anyway, if you watch some of my other videos, you'll see the colors I use. But I have another box like this that's all my veneers, and they're fine just like that. Only when you go to use them, you need to burnish them a little. All right, let's get this puppy done here. Okay, the edge feels smooth. It's a little sharp right here on the top edge. I can't tell if that's where I moved the clay up. I am going to sand it because when you put this clay on, I mean, I can stop right there, but I'd rather go over right to the edge. And there's this kind of sharp. So I'm going to sand that top edge. When I sanded earlier, I sanded the side edge. And I'm going to sand and make sure, like, this needs a little refinement right there. I'm going to do all that first now. And I'm not going to do it here because I don't want to get dust all over. So I will go to my kitchen and do that and be back. And then we're going to cover this with the veneer. Other things you could do, if you wanted, you could cut shapes out like circles, cut a few circles out and replace them with something else. Like you cut a circle out here and put a white circle in. I'm not doing that today. I like it simple like that. I think on a bracelet, a big color splash is all you really need. I mean, I've seen some beautiful beadwork ones, and then someone wants to look really close, but anyway, I'll be back. Okay, so I've sanded this. You can see where it's whitish along the edge. I wanted that to be a slight edge over. It was very sharp and straight. So now when I stretch the clay over that, it's not going to crack on that edge. There's the ends. I did all the way around the perimeter. The inside came out really nice. So my goal is to get the clay over and onto that edge right there. And being that it's black on the edge, that should help any camouflage, anything. All right. Something else. I tell you what, this is my first experience with these. Not having to make this cuff and not having it be metal, which is heavy, is a huge bonus on these things. I mean, I make bracelet blanks myself, and they're work. I mean, I have a whole pile here of different ones I've made, and I haven't covered them yet, and there's more than that. Anyway, I have all these different ones, and they're a lot heavier. Here's one. I'm teaching this as a class in March in Keystone Heights, Florida at the end of March. If you like some information, I will put a link to that in the description also. It's called the Clay Play Stay Retreat. We did it last year. It was awesome. All right, here goes nothing. I'm waiting for my dogs to start barking. They just ate. And I know I'm going to have to stop. So I might as well wait and go let them out. And then come back and we'll put liquid clay on here and finish covering it. And then I'll bake it. And then I'll sand it. You need to have a nice sharp X-Acto knife. That's for after you put it on there. We can, trim the edges. Okay. So now we're going to add some clay liquid clay to the outside of this. using translucent liquid Sculpey. And this is kind of drier than normal when it first comes out of the bottle. I keep it in a jar. I don't like fighting with the bottle. And what I put on there is enough to really spread out over the whole thing. It's kind of tacky. You know what? This might be Bacon Bond. It's pretty tacky. I don't think it's liquid clay. Liquid clay would give you a little bit more sliding around if you need that for placement. I'm gonna have to mark my jars. I had it in a plastic jar, which I didn't think was reacting with it, but I opened it one day and it was just all foam. So I had to get a new glass jar, and maybe that's what I did. Okay, so nice thin layer on here. Get it on the edge. It's very tacky. If I get a glob like this, I'm not putting it right on the edge. Put it on the flat side and work it over. You don't want an excess of this seeping out. Yeah, that's Bacon Bond. It's too tacky. All the edges. I hope I was on camera for most of that, but just putting it on and rolling it over the edge. Don't dab on the edge or you'll get it on the inside. Oh, there's Demi out there barking her head off. She's in charge of barking. The two boys, her sons that are with her, never bark. Unless there's an UPS guy at the door. Alright, so that's covered. My veneer is ready. I gotta wipe my fingers off. I'm gonna pick the middle spot here. I need to look. So, well, I'm just gonna get it on there because I don't want it to, I may not be able to move it. Keep it centered. Enough there, and then just there. I'm gonna come back. You don't want to stretch this. Just get it on there. Have enough to go over the edge. Okay. I'm kind of pulling tight, but I'm not really stretching it. Okay, so there's what we have. It goes to both ends. Now I'm going to start here in the top. I'm just working to the edge. I'm not trying to push it over the edge. Loosen that up. Get it right down to the edge. I'm not worried about working it over yet. Smoothing it out. Now, one thing with this white over black, the white's opaque clay, but you know, if you get it to a certain thinness, which we stretch it out, plus I'll be sanding it. If you get it to a certain thinness, the black could start, you know, reflecting light back through it and showing it as gray. One thing we could have done at the beginning, when I started with my first sheets on setting 0, we could have added another sheet below that, say of like a 4 or a 5, to start with a thicker layer. So by the time we got stretched out to this size, it would have been thicker, and we wouldn't have had to add a backing layer. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now, This is already close to the edge there, so I don't need to trim off any there. But I have extra here. So the first thing I'm going to do, stick my blade in there. I'm kind of facing away from the edge. Let me get it back in the same hole. I don't want to cut right up to the edge. I'm just cutting some of the excess off. And you can use scissors for this. If you want, just get your scissors in there. I'm trying to leave it like an 1/8 of an inch. That can be helpful. I kind of went too far there. I'm gonna have to stretch that over. Gently stretch it over. Okay. Yeah, I think scissors are the better option when you have that much overage. Trying to hope that you're seeing this, but I'm just leaving about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Okay, so now I'm just gently massaging this one to get more to that edge. See, now had I used liquid clay, it would have slid around a little better. My hands are pretty clean. Now I'm going to just start slightly going over the edge. Take your time. Let the clay stretch by itself. Don't force it. Let your hands get the warmth in there. And I'm trying to pull that right over to the edge so it's covering the sides, but not onto the back. I could use a little more there. And you gotta watch. You can't be squeezing hard here to hold it while you're pressing over here. Let the warmth of your hands and gentle rubbing do the work. I'm just going around for the first time. Working all the way around. Making sure there's no air bubbles, feeling that with my fingers as I go. These are nice. They have enough tension in them that it doesn't feel like it's collapsing on you, and you can get a good feel. It's going to be nice. You can get a good feel. Now I'm making sure where it goes over good, I'm tapping it against that side. But where it hasn't covered yet, I'm still just rubbing towards that way without pressing it down. When I get there, then I'll press it down. And if you can't stretch, roll with your hand like a roller. You don't want to stretch it so far over that edge that you create a crack. So you have to go slow. This is my only problem child right here where I stuck that blade through there. And it's getting there. I'll come back to that. I'm gonna see if I can get the rest of it. Need to get some over there. And I'm getting some red staining on the white, but at this point, I will sand that. It's not like it's embedded into the clay like a chunk would be. Here, okay. Pressing that against the edge. Careful with your fingernails. You're not digging into the other side while you're smoothing this side. Okay, working that down. I don't know if you can see, I'm right there to the edge and I'm just trying to close it. I will have very little to scrape away. This one's still a problem right here. I'm trying to get that over there. I'm going to use this right now, cut and see where I'm at. Make sure there's no crumbs when you start rubbing again. See where it's not attached. Make sure it's attached all the way around. There's a spot that's not even over the edge yet. I'm getting there. Pressing it down. You don't want to have a lot to cut off, but it's better to get it all the way just to that edge. And see, when you leach your clay, there may be a light fingerprint here, but it's not mushy, so all these little touches are re-smoothing it as you're doing it. Now, the only thing you want to look at is look at this edge on both sides as you're turning it and make sure there's no obvious lumps sticking out there. Okay, I'm going to do some trimming here, and then we'll see where we're at. Get rid of the crumbs. Don't drag them back onto the clay. This is a little harder here. I can't really show you and see it at the same time. My blade is more to the back side. Now on a pattern like this is where it's great, because even if it's a little off right there with all the different colors that overlap, it'll look like part of the pattern. And a light, now I sanded the form with 320 grit, and it did quick work of making it how I wanted it. It did not take me very long at all. When I sand this one, I'm going to refer you to my Kaleidoscope Part 4, and I'll put the link in the comments or in the description. And at the end of that, I show sanding through all the different levels of sandpaper. It's the same process as this. All right. Pushing right up to that edge. When you look at it from this side, it should look nice and smooth and rounded. A little black in there. I hope that sands out, but I don't know at this point. But it's on the edge, so I would be known to cut that out afterwards and refill it with red, but this is more about the experiment of using this form. You can see there it's kind of grayish. That's because the white is getting stretched thinner and thinner. That's why if you do something like the same process, but use some Skinner blends, that wouldn't matter that much. All right. I'm going to call that end. I'm going to check this side some more. I'm looking here now. You can see that excess clay in there. And it, oh shoot, I dented. The inside that I used that black sponge, it's almost smooth. It's matte looking, but it's almost smooth. If you use a heavy texture sponge on something for the inside, when you go to do this cutting away, you get a lot of catching and jagged movements, and it sticks. All right. There's a little in there. It has a catch. I'm going to go from this way. And you get to the point where it's better to use like 800 grit sandpaper to refine that than to try to sit here and chop away. All right. I think this is good. A little bit more right there. Now that whitish area in there, that's from sanding it from before. And after I bake it, it's also from scraping it with my blade. After I bake it, there's a lot on that corner I missed. It will go back to black. And I really like Donna Kato's use of Nivea cream, but she sands with very coarse paper and then puts it on. I like to do the full sanding, like this bracelet was fully sanded through all the levels. I didn't want it shiny, and it didn't need the Nivea cream. I hand buffed it, but I did add it, and it just gives another slightly level of smoothness, and it just feels, 1% better that it's worth using it. But on mine, it's never going to need replaced because it was perfect before I put it on. It was more of just like a conditioner. And wearing a piece of jewelry like this, rubbing on your clothes, it's going to do the same conditioning because it's already perfectly sanded and smooth. I'm not hiding, scratchiness, but it works. I just don't want to have to reapply it or tell a customer, oh, you need to reapply it in a little while. But I don't sell my stuff anyway. All right. Crumbs out of the way. I'm going to check this for just a little bit more. Try not to stretch it too much. There, I just nudged the edge up. I need to trim that off again. I don't know if you can see that right there. Very hard to do on the angle, and that's better. Much better. Oh, now that one came up. All right, I'm going to bake this and sand it. I'm going to just check again here to make sure the edge is all right. But I think that's pretty cool. Once I get it sanded and the white brightens up, there's a little crack there. I need to press that together. And you can always use your paper to burnish. You have to burnish something hard so you're not smearing your fingerprints or dragging different colors in it. Use the paper. I might go all the way around with that. There's some extra there. Like the more you go, the more you have to go. You have to find a stopping point. So I'm going to call this that stopping point. I think it's good. I would prefer to have a little bit thicker of clay to sand away, but that's just me. I know most people don't like the sand, but I'll know for the next one. And trimming away what you can to prevent you from having to sand too much. This needs a little. All right, I'm done. I'm just gonna start getting messy here. You want it to feel smooth there. You don't want a rough edge. And I'm dragging that color down. But that's just telling me that I'm sealing the seam. And I can sand that away later. It's so very little. I hope you can see what's going on there. And I'm not going to be able to really sand that edge well, just lightly. Okay, it's gone in the oven. A little bit more. Did I get both sides? I think I did. Both sides in the end. There we go. Can't put it on. Probably won't fit me anyway. That's a problem I get with making things too big half the time, because I can't try them on, so I'm guesstimating. All right. I'm calling it. I'll be back after I bake it and sand it. So after putting my bracelet in the oven, I decided to make some earrings. And the strip I have is a little too short for my cutter, and I used SWEETY BIJOUX cutter, and they are super sharp. Anyway, so I cut 2 earrings, and then I didn't want them that big. So what I did, I'm going to try to show you here. I'll use the back of it. So after I cut the earring, you see these 2 little pieces there. After I cut all the way through, I'm not going to in this one. I then took one of the circles from the circle set, and I lined it up right with these 2 end corners there. And then I cut that last little bit off. And then I got these 2 earrings. Now these are baked already, and they're already sanded. Very nice and smooth. And there's my signature back that I do. This is all done in one bake. If you watch my polymer clay earring class, all levels, you will see how I do this, and then you keep the texture. But it works really well, and it's really nice, and you don't have to finish. And they're half shiny, half matte, and speckly looking. So check that video out. I'll put a link for that also. And then here's the bracelet. Came out very nice. I really like this pattern. It was simple, but we're going to do a little troubleshooting after I show this to you. The inside came out nice. That little bit, I need to probably sand with a higher grit in there. But that little bit of stuff I pulled down, sanded, it was so little, it sanded right off with 400 grit sandpaper. And then I did 600, but I need to do the other levels. It's a little scratchy in there. This was hand buffed. I went from 400, 600, 800, and 1,000 grit sandpaper, and then I buff on a terry cloth tea towel, the woven kind, not the fluffy kind. Okay, I will try this again because my one dog went nuts outside my window because one raindrop fell on her. Anyway, I really like this pattern. Comes out great. After sanding it, it cleaned up all the white, any staining from the touching from the surface. Troubleshooting. Okay, things I would do differently. I would probably put just a slightly thicker, this was a number 4 I used, a slightly thicker interior piece to give me a little more edge. I would also do a better job sanding this side flat, more flat. The next thing I would do is, as I might have discussed a little earlier, next time I make this, I'm going to start with the thickest setting of my pasta machine sheets, and then I'm going to put an extra, like number 3 underneath of it for the first layer. That way, the first time I stretch it out, I can stretch it out on my thickest setting and have it stay thick, because, you know, after I thinned it and thinned it again, and I think I thinned it a 3rd time, it was fine for something flat or like the earrings, but the stretching over the edge is not too bad on this side. But I had backed it with the black. I would like to not have to back it, but you can see there where I had that little piece that chunked out, and I had to stretch and stretch. It got very thin. It's still a nice bracelet. It's strong. I can't get it on because my wrists are so big. But, I mean, it's got enough flex for the average lady to get this on. And this one just really feels good. And I'm really happy with the pattern. And hopefully I'll do this in some other colors. And once again, start with a thicker sheet than your thickest setting to do your first cuttings, and then try to step down. The other thing I could have done with this is, I probably, if I had backed it in white, it would have been better for the white, but on the red or the black, it could have come through. You just can't see it as much. Or I should have left a little bit more out when I cut it with the scissors. I should have left just a little bit more so that I didn't have to stretch to wrap it over. So those are things you learn when you try a new product. But these bracelet blanks are awesome. They really are. They take so much work out of making a bracelet. They're easy to use, quick cleanup. I mean, sanding, the pre-sanding of the plastic part, the 3D printed plastic part, was like 2 minutes maybe. And that was spread over 2 different things. Once I did the side, and then once I had to go back and do that sharp top edge so that the clay wrapped over. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to finish these earrings up, and I'll have some still shots. Where's the other one? I like those too. And I just had to stretch it out just a little bit more this way so that they were long enough. But these cutters are amazing. They are so sharp. And these are thin. And I baked them on just a slight curve. And that's another thing I'll tell you. Something even this slight of a curve, which is not much at all, when you do your sanding, it is totally different than sanding something flat. It just comes out better. I don't know why. The arch, sometimes when you sand something flat, you get a dimple in the center, and that doesn't happen. So if you can just, even this slight little curve, it is so slight. I don't even know how to show you, but you can see. But it makes all the difference on sanding the surface. I hope you enjoyed this class. Hopefully I can make a lot more, a lot faster than I have been over the holidays. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe, and let the commercials do their thing.